Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing current players. Today, we are looking at Survivor 47, Episode 10, Loyal to the Soil. I am one of your co-hosts, Josh Wessler, joined today by Ryan Stacy and remotely, Derek Kubicek.
Hello, hello.
It's odd being this one, but here we are. We're going to make it work, people.
Yeah, we got hit by a decent snowstorm up in the Fargo area. I didn't want to drive anywhere because I don't trust other drivers in snowstorms. So I wanted to stay here. Derek wanted to stay at his place. And then Josh didn't have a home to go to because you're in a hotel. So he didn't have a choice but to go out and brave the storm. So here we are.
Yeah, well, that means that Josh picks the audio guy and the editing guy, which makes sense. But for the people out there, my family is going on a vacation without me. It's my season to work. Work late, work horrible hours, work-life balance doesn't exist. Don't be like Derek. Find your balance. So I'm going to miss them. I wanted to spend the night with them. And my son Emery really enjoyed watching the episode tonight. And I have to say, as did I.
Yeah, good episode. I have notes.
Many notes.
Not for the production, but for the players. I have notes.
Copious.
And they're not very nice.
Yeah, it was interesting watching the episode just with Ryan this time. You know, I often watch it alone and you two are together, and I often watch it with all three of us together, but it's rare that it's only me and Ryan, and it was a very unique experience.
Just talking mad crap about Derek and,
well earned.
That was the best part.
Enjoying life.
Yeah, the crap you speak of is well earned, well deserved, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I will talk crap about both of you when you're not around.
Perfect. Yeah. Anyway, good episode. Should we get into spoilers?
Yeah, yep. I have some thoughts that are best waited until spoilers, that are just more general feelings that I liked watching alone. So let's get into spoilers.
All right. 3, 2, 1. We're going to lose Gabe tonight in a very, very bad move. Mistakes were made by the majority of the cast tonight. I have lots of things to say. And Gabe going home was a mistake that several of them will rue.
The big thing that I want to touch on tonight, that is, I guess, spoiler section, is how many times are the contestants of 47 going to make Jeff feel awful about production twists? Because in one fell swoop, every shot in the dark is gone. And I love that. I love that for them. I love that Jeff fell for it. He was like, no, 4 people. And Kyle's like, how about every shot in the dark? And Jeff's like, oh, you made me an offer I can't refuse. Except,
screw your twists, man.
So it's just really enjoyable to watch this cast collectively. I mean, they did it with the sandwich amulet. They've done it with the shot in the dark. They did it with some of the wide open advantages, like, well, let's just burn it now publicly.
Yep.
I love how 47's cast is reminding Jeff the essence of Survivor is not how production can screw us over.
Yep, I agree. It's been great. I greatly enjoy that. Good for them. I don't necessarily love the move for the players of getting rid of the shot in the dark. If I'm any of them, I want to keep it. But, you know.
But hold on.
Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah, we can talk about principles, and then we can talk about gameplay. They're two separate things, and I just wanted to say I love that.
And might I say, Derek, your hair looks very nice tonight.
Oh, well, thank you. The YouTube
for
audience.
those watching on,
The YouTube audience will have a treat, but they can also see my night vision goggles from the veteran Modern Warfare 2 drop back in 2008 or 9. So,
all right,
very nice.
Very nice. All right, should we get into the episode proper?
Yes.
All right. So back at camp after Soul got voted out, we were shown that Andy told Teeny during tribal council that Soul was going, Genevieve was behind it all. So Teeny had no choice but to really go along with it. Back at camp, she's pissed at Genevieve and lets her know it, which don't love that. Should have been try to be a little less emotional or a little calmer about it. But yeah, it's very clear that Teeny is pissed, and this Genevieve-Teeny relationship probably isn't going to last a whole lot longer.
You know, I actually don't mind how, in one of the rare instances of this, I don't mind how, public-facing Teeny was with this, just because this is the opportunity to paint Genevieve as a threat. And yes, while people are going to get to that point eventually, it's possible that this accelerates that process. It helps that, getting Genevieve's name just out there, being upset with her, having everyone know that, yeah, this was a move by Genevieve for her own game. I don't mind it from Teeny's perspective.
It definitely helped paint her in Genevieve and paint a target on her back, but it definitely burned that bridge a little bit more than it necessarily needed to be. But yeah, everyone knows Genevieve did the soul vote, so Genevieve's gonna have a huge target on her back this episode, like I said last week.
One thing that I want to walk back on, because we didn't have all the information last week, Genevieve very much did not get away with it. So that's the one amendment that I'm going to make to some of my statements on Genevieve's move last week. She didn't get away with it with Teeny. Both of them, for all intents and purposes, are now free agents. Any marriages going forward are marriages of convenience and not necessarily marriages that will last. Yeah. I think they're willing to work with each other. I do agree with you, Ryan. I think Teeny was a little too emotional, but as she herself has stated, she's playing with her emotions maybe a little too much. But that said, there is a new target, and thy name is Genevieve.
Yes.
She has arrived, and everyone knows.
So we have three kind of main targets now that people are going to be talking about. People are scared of the Tuku 4, with Kyle and Gabe being the two primary targets of that group. And now Genevieve's name is out there, so we're going to get people talking about all three of them, who to take out next. And we're going to get a lot of Andy going around and really making bonds with lots of different people. So Andy's setting himself up nicely for the Andy winner edit. That Taco Bell is going to be delicious.
Yeah, I can't wait for Andy to be the default winner pick after every single actual threat is gone from the game. And then people just try to excuse their way into giving Andy the title of Sole Survivor a la Gabler just because they want to feel super special about their season.
The only way Andy has a chance is if he pulls a Boston Rob and he goes with exactly who he needs to go with. We'll talk about that during the Dank Downs and the Lank Downs and the Rank Downs, I'm sure.
What about the Jank Downs?
Oh, you're right. I meant to say Jank Down.
Yeah, way to leave me out.
You Clank Down, Frank Down, all of them. So I'm just saying, I think Andy might make a move tonight, but I am not convinced that he's in the clear as the edit would lead us to believe.
So I was talking to my dad. I went home this weekend and I was telling him about that not really a bet, but a halfway bet that Josh made that if Andy wins the season, he will buy me Taco Bell. My dad has decided to jump in on this bet. So if Andy wins the season, I get Taco Bell from Josh and my dad.
With absolutely no risk on Ryan's side. This is a one-sided bet, and I understand that that's what it was.
Best kind of bet.
Literally the only reason I did it was to prove a point, not because I care.
I hope your point is not proven. Taco Bell does sound delicious.
These are pity bets. And by the way, Josh, maybe if it happens, I think you and I go to lunch and we just don't invite Ryan. And that's his punishment.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine. That's fine. Oh yeah, punish me for being right. Yeah, okay.
No. I'm saying the stakes are like if you win, Josh has to buy you Taco Bell. But if Josh wins, him and I go to lunch and we just don't invite you.
You know what? Have fun. I'll play Mario Kart and I'll have a great time. Maybe I'll take a nap or something like that. I'll be fine. But yeah, Andy is going to tell Rachel not to vote for Genevieve, or not to trust Genevieve, excuse me, because Genevieve wants Rachel out. So no, Rachel's alarm bells are ringing. Yeah, man, I like it from Andy. I really do. It was good stuff.
The edit is painting this a certain way. But if people get wise to this, this is the kind of time where a player on top, or even like a cohort on top, will say, hey, Andy's taken up a spot at the end. I know you're a threat. You know I'm a threat. But we need to get rid of the Abby Marias of the world if we don't want the GOAT army to assemble and Andy to crown himself. So while the edit is painting it like it might go a certain way, if you're on the island and this is happening and you understand there's doublespeak going on where he's making deals with everyone, there is an argument, if you think you're in a good spot, to try and take an Andy out here, or at least soon. So I just want to bring that everyone's attention, that the edit feeds it as positive. It's not always positive.
Yeah, I think one of the important things that I noticed this episode is it's the first time since I think like the premiere that Andy, I think, is starting to let his guard down a little bit with his strategy. We saw multiple conversations go on where he's talking to people like they're his number one. Like, it's me and you, we're going to the end. I really value your opinion on strategy, all this stuff, which, yes, that can be good, but he did with people like Caroline and Sue, people who he hasn't really interacted a whole lot with, and I don't think that that's going to leave a lot of an impact to those people. Someone like Rachel, okay, you might be able to find that opportunity opportunity to be able to bring Rachel and be like, yeah, us two to the end, and you bring her, she brings you. But for the other people, that's just going to fall flat. Or like Derek's saying, other people are going to talk about, hey, Andy came to me with this idea. Oh, weird. Andy did the exact same thing to me. We saw this already this season in the premiere, so it could come back and bite him pretty easily.
So going on to the reward challenge, it's the one where you get your arms and legs tied up, and Jeff has his sick fantasy play out in front of him.
Not the only Jeff fantasy tonight.
As they worm their way across the beach. But as this is happening, I'm like, Josh, do you think like they could, what is the material made of? Could you use your mouth to move the ball along? And like 10 seconds later, Andy bites the ball and helps move it over the mound. So yeah, I'm like a seer, I think, when it comes to Andy.
Now, what
the future.
What Ryan isn't saying is the way that he worded it was more so like, you can like literally bite into the ball to like grip it. Yeah. Andy bit the fabric on the ball to move it. I do not think that is what you were talking about.
Same damn thing.
I'll give you the win.
Yes, you will. I deserve it.
But more like half credit.
No, full credit. I called this. And then Sam and Kyle and Rachel are going to end up winning reward.
And it's not close.
So Kyle is actually going to be the person to bring up taking out Gabe to Sam and Rachel because he's worried Gabe might turn on him. And he's worried that the Tuku 4 is a big target, which is really interesting. I did not expect that from Kyle.
I like it a lot because Kyle's path to the end, I've already laid it out as best I can with Kyle being who he is. Win a lot of physical challenges and be incredibly nice. But this is him showing that he can be strategic. He's not always loyal to the soil. If there is a reason, he's willing to say, hey, I'm willing to cut Gabe. I understand where I'm at. I understand Tuku is a threat. I'm not going to try and keep my people here. Let's try this. Especially if Kyle understands that he is high on the chopping block. Now is as good a time as any if he loses immunity to try and cut his friend.
I don't agree because I think Kyle needs Gabe to have a shot.
It's interesting. I think eventually Kyle needs to go after Gabe. I think that he used... Basically, like, it's the everyone gets one, and I think he used his too early because he's going to end up being immune later in this episode, and I think he should have used this opportunity to go after Gabe at a time when he is vulnerable, not when he's safe. Take out Gabe when when both of you guys are an open threat, and then hopefully people pick him instead of you, and it can save you for that episode. When you're locked up as safe for this one episode, go after someone who is outside of your persona in the game. Someone like a Genevieve or really anyone else other than a Gabe.
I completely agree with Josh on this one.
This is a little bit results-oriented thinking. Where we are in the episode right now, Kyle does not have immunity. Right now, We're off on reward, and we're talking about the possibilities. So this is where I like it from Kyle, and I want that to be very clear to the listeners. Once Kyle is safe, it is better if you can keep... I guess this, wasn't the right move for everyone. This spoils that for me. But as of right now, I like that he's having these conversations across battle lines. He's trying to sow the seeds. I will go after Gabe if we need to do that.
Sure. But Sam and Kyle seem to be on the Gabe train, but Rachel would rather take out Genevieve because Rachel's smart. But Rachel and Sam do talk about like getting back together after Sam kind of blew her spot up in the last episode. Andy's going to go to Sue, and he says he wants to go to the end with her and like work with her because Andy's recognized that Sue plays with her emotion. Cut to supercut of Sue hating Kyle and wanting him out. And Andy just throws a little more fuel on the fire, but he's like, yeah, he calls you and Caroline Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Good job, Andy. Just really setting a light here.
It seems so obvious. I feel like most people should be able to recognize this and be like, oh yeah, Andy is literally just saying things. But I just don't think that Sue's a good enough player to be able to recognize that. However, I don't think Andy is going to in the future. We'll see. But I don't think he's going to have a filter to know when to use a tactic like this for people who might not be as good at the game versus more skilled players who can identify when they're trying to be manipulated.
You can manipulate Sue like this. I want to opine. I think Kyle probably said this at some point.
Yeah, I think we've heard that.
That was an oddly specific claim from him, so he's using the truth as a weapon and feeding that flame. It is funny to watch Sue's supercut, the Bruce and Katura-esque vendetta that she seems to have because Kyle wrote her name down something like 12 and a half years ago.
Get over it, Sue. God damn.
Also recognize who you can beat, Sue.
Yeah. Gabe, Teeny, Caroline, and Genevieve are all going to talk. Gabe is worried that Kyle might flip. So we're kind of getting both guys prepping to go after each other. And Genevieve is like, cool, let's get the target off me. And she's like, yeah, if Kyle gets to the end, I will vote for him.
Another obvious tactic of, hey,
yeah.
vote for this guy instead of me. It's super not obvious what I'm trying to do here.
And Gabe is worried that, like, hey, maybe Tuku will be targeted. So, yeah, everyone is kind of state the obvious and, like, these are the possibilities. This is what could happen. But yeah, I do like that we get both Gabe and Kyle thinking about targeting each other here. It's kind of funny. We're going to go to the immunity challenge. And Jeff Probst has the rice and he wants to negotiate. 4 people sit out. They get rice. Kyle's going to suggest everyone gives up their shot in the dark instead of everyone sacrifices their shot in the dark. So everyone but Rachel, because she already played hers, they get the rice instead. Everybody's pretty instantly on board except Sam. He's the only hesitant one, but Gabe is going to persuade Sam to go along with it. Jeff agrees, so that's what they do. I don't like this. You can get rice when the game is over. Even if it's kind of a weak advantage like shot in the dark, I keep shot in the dark. Even if I'm the only one, I'm gonna die on that hill.
If the entire group wants to do it, if we're just talking about Sam, I disagree with you, Ryan. I think Sam should go with the group. I don't think he should be as wishy-washy as he was. I think that everyone should have hopped on board, but he should have been the last to do it, or whoever. It doesn't have to be Sam. If you're the last domino to fall, you have to fall. It's kind of like if you're not going to build the shelter, well, you're all going to be miserable in camp together. This is assimilation, and people are looking for a reason to cut you. But individually, not as a collective, everyone should be thinking about how the useful part of the shot in the dark is that it's a synthesized coconut chop every vote. This is our main target, but this is the backup. And it lets people know, and it can fracture alliances, and it can cause chaos. But nobody was thinking about that. I think there are 4 people here who could have been confident enough in sitting out and still get the rice, but ultimately I think you just forego the rice. I think the group here should forego the rice.
Yeah, they should not have taken the rice.
The group as a whole should not be taking the rice. Everyone individually should not be taking the rice. But I 100% agree with Derek that if you are the last person remaining and all 8 or whatever other people have already agreed, you have to do it, just because otherwise I think it's a really bad look, and it just gives a lot more attention to you about, why? Why is Sam so stern about this?
He said it because he feels like he's been on the bottom.
I understand, but
therefore protection. It makes complete sense, and I don't think anyone could begrudge him for that.
I actually think that's backwards thinking too, because the people who shot in the dark matters the most to are the biggest threats in the game. And I don't think that's Sam in this moment. I think that's Genevieve, Kyle, Gabe, those types of people who have been actively having their name tossed around. Those are the people who should benefit the most from having their shot in the dark in their pocket. Like Derek was saying, it's the opportunity to have that backup vote going. And if you know that that person that you're targeting, those big threats, have their shot in the dark still, there's always another name that's floating around and just gives them another advantage. So like a Sue, who cares if Sue has her shot in the dark at this point in the game? It's really those big threats instead.
No, I'm going to die on this hill. I'd rather have a crappy safety net than no safety net. This is a bad move. But Kyle is going to end up winning immunity. So Kyle's got his 4th one. He is safe. So really this is a discussion. Is it going to be Gabe or Genevieve? We get lots of people talking, giving their perspectives. Even Caroline wants to jump ship and maybe take out Gabe because she thinks she has a better chance if he's out of the game. But she cannot tell Sue. Sue's too close to Gabe, so she needs to leave Sue out if she's going to go along with this Gabe vote. But yeah, lots of different discussions going on about who'd rather have who. But eventually we're going to go to tribal council. And it's going to be 7 votes for Gabe, 2 votes for Genevieve. Sue was left out of the vote along with Gabe. Yeah, this is a bad move. This is a real bad move. Genevieve for sure should have been the one to go home here.
I agree with that. With the back and forth, it was pretty obvious that it was between Gabe and Genevieve, so much to the point that I was actually expecting a third name to come up at some point of, right out of left field. Here comes an Andy vote out of nowhere for whatever reason. It just seemed overly obvious that it was going to be one of these 2 people, and it did. It ended up being Gabe. I think that this was a good move for someone like Caroline, who's able to make a little bit of a mark on her game without being way over the top threatening like Genevieve from last episode, but bad for most other people in the game just because of threat level. I think that Genevieve's just more threatening than Gabe in the end.
What's hard for me when I look at my dank down from last week, I know that Ryan had Gabe criminally low.
Yeah, I had him as in my
criminally
cannot win category bottom 2.
I had Gabe at number 3, and
criminally high.
I believe that our listeners had Gabe at 1. I have Genevieve.
Gabe was at 1.
1.
Gabe was at 1 2 weeks ago.
Sure. So point being though, he has had legs in this game. He's still a big threat that got taken out of the game. Genevieve, I think, is a bigger threat to win overall, but Genevieve has no strong allies left, which is kind of something we realized. Everyone's willing to work with her, but nobody necessarily wants to work with her. We saw that kind of at the beginning of this episode. Gabe still has a Tuku 4 alliance, and it leaves a lot of open options for Tuku if you don't get one of them out. Particularly like the Tuku women with Caroline and Sue. If Gabe is still there, you have a lot more options, and I think they realized, okay, Tuku's going to get picked off if we don't pick ourselves off here. So I think that it's like 51-49 what the best move is. I'm almost willing to trust the players on this, but I do think Genevieve is still the biggest threat to win the game, so I'm going to edge it that Genevieve should have probably gone home, but it's not nearly as egregious as Ryan would have you believe, in my opinion.
Well, here's the thing. I just think Tuku is just so fractured, and I think it's anyone can see it. I may not be able to see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but everyone should be able to see that Tuku is very fractured. And then to go along with that, honestly, the Tuku, the worry that people present is that Tuku could work together to the end. They should be. They're like the bottom. They were my bottom 4. All the Tuku 4 are my 4 least likely to win. What should be happening is Andy teams up with Tuku. That's what should be happening. Take out these big threats: Genevieve, Sam, Rachel, Teeny. That's what should be happening, but the Tuku is so fractured that I'm just not, if I'm anybody else, I'm just not that worried about them.
And I don't think that Tuku is that fractured. I think that they are together if they need to be and apart if they need to be. That's not fractured. They're not after each other. It's, hey, there's 4 of us, 5 of them. If we don't whittle ourselves down, like we talked about with Green Tribe and Maria and Tim from 46, they're going to start taking us out, and it's not going to be our choice. And if it's not our choice, it could be me. So I don't think they're nearly as, and also having all 4 Tuku at the bottom, that I think that's a bad rank down. That is, from your perspective, I see why you're arguing your point, but I don't think it's as egregious as you think it is. Truly,
all 4 of them were throwing each other's name out in this episode. They are very fractured
because of exactly what I just said. They saw the writing on the wall with the other 5, and they didn't want to be the last off the boat.
That was a secondary reason.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's as lopsided as what Ryan is saying, but I do think it was the right vote. There's 9 people, 10 there at this time. There's 10 people left in the game, and I have this being a good move for Genevieve, Caroline, because she's able to make her mark. Good move for someone like Andy, because honestly, either move is good for Andy, and then good for Kyle. So that's 4 people of the 10. Yes, still the wrong move in my opinion, but it is not that lopsided. I think both of these people are going to have to go eventually. Order does matter, yes, but I don't think that Genevieve is long for the world just because of her threat level and her peaking too early anyways.
Did you ask Twitter or Blue
Yes.
Sky?
Blue Sky does not have polls.
Okay.
But I did ask both Twitter and Threads. I gave a little bit of love to Threads tonight. Good for them. And I did ask them with a poll if the right person went home. And both Twitter and Threads agreed that the right person went home. So they agreed with each other, not so much with Ryan or me.
Us.
And those percentages were 75% and 63%.
Ryan, can I ask you a clarifying question?
Yes.
You said that Andy should be working with Tuku, and those 5 should vote out Genevieve. What should Teeny and Sam and Rachel do?
Oh, well, it's okay. To be
Tonight.
fair, everyone should vote out Genevieve, but eventually Andy should team up with Tuku for at least a couple of more votes. Take out some.
Okay,
of those
I was
people.
wondering
Yes,
if that was like a snapshot in time, or if that was sort of an ongoing strategy. So
Okay, so Twitter and Threads are wrong. We're right, especially me.
As always.
As always, as is tradition. Should we get a best worst player of the episode?
Yeah.
Josh, start us off. Who's your best player of the episode?
I'm going to give an honorable mention to Andy here, but a lot of that I think is due to the edit, which does scare me a little bit for a potential Andy winner edit, even though I don't think it's going to end up being deserved if it does end up happening. But I'm going to give my best play of the episode to Kyle. Yes, he won immunity, potentially saved himself, we'll never know, but he got someone out who ended up starting to gun for him pre-challenge, someone who he figured out, even though he's close with, he will have to go against eventually. Yes, I thought it was a little premature. I think he could have pushed this off another episode when he's not safe to be able to utilize it a little bit more. But overall, in general, I thought that it was good for him.
I'm going to give mine to Sam. I should say Sam, Rachel, and Genevieve. I do think for those three, getting rid of Gabe is a good thing for them. Rachel doesn't really matter, but I think this is obviously good for Genevieve, but actively good for Sam because he kind of controlled this vote. He got himself back into the game. This was kind of Sam's back. Sam's never been more back. So I'm going to give it to Sam just because this kind of felt like his move more than anybody else's, and he really needed a win.
I'm gonna follow the same line of thought as Ryan. I have Kyle as an honorable mention, but ultimately I didn't like that during the scramble on the beach he was so gung-ho to get out Gabe, because at that point he has immunity. You need to try and keep Gabe around because y'all are kind of clones in this game. Not really, but you get my meaning. I gave it to Rachel because I liked how during the scramble she was a strong advocate to vote out Genevieve. She wanted Genevieve gone, but ultimately assimilated to what ended up being a basically unanimous vote against a power duo, or at least a 2-vote voting block with Sue joining in. Kudos, by the way, to the tribe for not cluing in Sue, because I think she would have used her idol on him. Like, I think she would have done it. So to Caroline, especially for not cluing Sue in. So point to Caroline as another honorable mention, but Rachel quietly sowing the seeds for being able to take a shot at Genevieve eventually. In my dank down, Rachel was one below Gabe, with only Kyle and Genevieve above her. She now moves into a top 3 power position with plenty of time to get out Kyle and to get out Genevieve and still be able to fight her way to the end without being too big of a threat. So I have Rachel.
That's a good point. I was gonna be a little not harsh, but just a little critical on Caroline not cluing Sue in, just because there might have been an opportunity there for her to build a stronger bond with Sue and hopefully not alienate her by blindsiding her. I completely forgot about the idol side of it and the fact that she knows that Sue has that idol. So that's a good call out, Derek, on that.
For worst player, I'm going to give mine to Teeny, actually. I don't like how emotional Teeny was after the blindside or the Tribal Council last time. I also thought this was very bad for her to take out Gabe instead of Genevieve. If Genevieve got home, this could have been a huge thing for Teeny. She could have really, even if she wasn't the driving force of the vote, after that kind of like emotional moment, this could have been a great story beat for her, something to throw at Tribal Council, like, hey, this is my move. And if that was the case, there's so many people who were gunning for Genevieve that I don't think it would have made Teeny a huge target, but it still would have helped her game. Going after Gabe negates all that and kind of erases that moment. So Teeny is my worst player of the episode.
I'm going to pick the low-hanging fruit. I'm going to say that it was Sue. She was left out of the vote, and I feel that Andy manipulated her into really gunning for Kyle, someone who, again, voted for her roughly 84 years ago, one time when there was 6 people on the tribe and no lines were drawn. I feel Sue is playing way too powerfully with her emotions, and it is going to pay dividends in the dank down soon.
Yeah, I actually really like Ryan's perspective that Teeny has the opportunity with a lot, not a lot of the downside here. I think that's a good thought process behind giving Teeny the worst player episode, but it's Sue.
Sue's my dishonorable mention.
Yeah, spoiler alert. In a final 2, Sue can no longer win, which has not been the case up until this point for me. So that'll be fun to discuss. But yes, Sue, worst player of the episode.
I really can't argue with you guys.
Before we move on, though, even though I gave Sue worst of the episode, I want to make a call out because we've had this happen in season 43, and we had it happen last season with Maria and Charlie. What I really like about Ryan was saying about Teeny needing to take out Genevieve. If Teeny hangs around as an original member of Lavo with Genevieve for too long, she will be the Charlie to the Maria, and she will be the Cassidy to the Carla. Genevieve has to go long enough for Teeny to have her own game. Otherwise, she will not be seen as an individual who ever had agency. So I have that note written down. She's a dishonorable mention for me, and she's running out of time. Teeny is on the clock if she actually wants to have a fighting chance based on how new era Survivor juries have voted.
On that note, who's going next, Eric?
For next, again, I'm just going to try and pick low-hanging fruits here, but I feel like if Kyle's available, he will go next. It ought be Genevieve, I think. But if Kyle loses immunity, nobody wants to be on the season where somebody breaks the single season immunity record, and he has a lot of opportunities left to do it, or to at least tie it and pass it. So I think that if Kyle loses immunity, he's going to go home, and I think he has to lose eventually. So I'm picking Kyle.
Yeah, just the vibe of the next time on Survivor. There wasn't anything that said, oh, we got to get Kyle out. It's definitely Kyle tonight. None of that came up. Instead, it led off the teaser with, I think it was just a quote from Kyle, which to me, that screams, all right, this is the exit point. This is where it is. This is Kyle's time to shine and leave. I had Kyle as my next player. And if it's not Kyle, it's Genevieve, but I'm going Kyle.
Because of that quote, I'm going to go the opposite direction and not pick Kyle. Genevieve's going home. She's the next big threat everyone was talking about. We do Gabe this time. We do Genevieve next time. Cool.
On the off chance that Genevieve was targeted tonight and it shakes off of her, who's your dark horse pick to go home? I'd like to throw out Sam as a nominee as well. Andy finally gets to give Sam his comeuppance with his newfound group of misfits.
I would say probably Rachel plays her idol and bounces somebody from Tuco out of the game.
Okay.
I wouldn't, put it against Andy going home, just, exposing him working with too many people at one time. If you're looking for a dark horse, I could see him.
So let's get into our rank downs, dank downs, jank downs, and lank downs and figure out who cannot win this game. Josh, why don't you go first? Jank it up.
Ooh, I feel so special. So at the top, no change. It's Genevieve. And actually, it's a pretty sizable gap now. It's that widened quite significantly just because it's clear that she is the biggest threat in the game. Now, I still do not think that she's going to make it to the end to have any of that matter. Next, it is, I would say, 4-way tie for whoever comes next. In order, I say it's Rachel, then Teeny, then Caroline, and Sam. I think those four are super tight together, but we've just had previous verbal confirmation that Rachel is threatening the game. People were focusing on her, and then for some reason it stopped because they wanted to focus on other people. So that's why Rachel kind of topped that list for me. After that, for the first time, I have Andy outside of the can't win realm. Say what you want, Ryan, but I have Andy third to the bottom now, which means if you're keeping track of names I have not listed off, Kyle, I do not think can win this game. Kyle's game has been impressive from a challenge perspective, and he's shown that he does have some strategic chops, but so does everyone else in this game. This is a very capable cast. And I think that if he goes up against any one of the other people that I already mentioned, he will lose. The only person that he can beat in this game is Sue. Sue is dead last, and it is not close. Kyle is close to Andy. I'm not saying that there's a big gap there, but basically the giant sandwich in the middle, the two pieces of bread of my jank downs are like elevated outside of all the other fixings inside. Genevieve is way up at the top and Sue is way at the bottom. Everyone else is pretty smack dab in the middle.
All the fixings in the middle.
Yeah, but if we do somehow get a final three of Andy, Kyle, and Sue, which we absolutely will not get that final three, I think that Andy pulls that out.
It's happening. Okay, I'll go next. My rank down, I pretty much seems last week I swapped two people. Rachel at number 1, Genevieve at number 2. I did swap Teeny and Sam. Teeny's 3, Sam's 4. I just think Teeny's more people who really like her, and Sam not as much, but I do think they're both perfectly capable of winning. Andy's 5, then Caroline. Kyle and Sue are my bottom 2. Kyle and Sue cannot win this game.
Dude, our rankings are so close.
Derek, take it up.
I am so not in lockstep with either of you. So for my dank downs, I did what I'm referring to as a pluck and swap. So we're plucking Gabe out of the lineup, and I am swapping 2 people. So still at the top, I have Genevieve. But not all that far below Genevieve, I have Kyle, because he has now won 4 individual immunities. He is well liked socially and proved tonight that he has some strategic chops. You heard it from Josh himself. On a cast where everyone has some strategic chops and everyone is likable, Kyle has won 4 individual immunity challenges. So he gets to stay at 2 for now. And by the way, the cast has elevated him while he has not been there as a threat. So while Time Team might not be on his side, if people are building him up to be a threat and he makes it to the end, we got to be careful. At number 3, I have Rachel, followed by Sam and Teeny and Caroline. I do have them in their own tier, if you will. The reason that Teeny is at the bottom part of that is because Genevieve is still here. Like I said, if she's not careful, she may become Cassidy. She may become Charlie. She can move if Genevieve goes home soon. So Caroline was at the bottom of that one. And then my 2 who can't win the game are Andy and Sue. In a surprise final 2, however, this is where the swap happened. Andy will demolish Sue. I am now convinced at this point in time. So, pluck and swap.
I will point out that Colby Donaldson, Ozzy Luth, Brad Culpepper all won 5 individual immunity challenges, made it to the end and lost. So, it doesn't mean everything.
Let's see. Ozzy went with Yule, who had the super idol to help him. Colby went with Tina, which is basically the Genevieve of the season, which is terrifying. And Brad Culpepper went to the end with Sarah Lucina, who is arguably the most strategically dominant player of like the 30s and onward, and is the Genevieve of the season. So
I'm just saying, doesn't mean a whole lot.
I'm just saying. You got to pick your final 2 and your final 3 carefully.
What did the listeners say for last week?
Yeah, so this doesn't include obviously the results or anything from tonight's episode, but the listeners, they're pretty close to Derek with having Kyle at the number 1 spot. You know, challenges, you know, maybe they're just that important to some people, but Kyle is number 1 on the listener rankings, and Teeny, oddly, at the bottom. Derek touched on a little bit that maybe Teeny's game's just going to be a little invalidated, but they even have Andy ahead of Teeny in their rank downs this week.
Okay. All right, let's get into the survivor pool. This is interesting. Things are going to get a little weird here. Josh, you and I are down to 1 person we're allowed to pick because we both had Kyle.
Yep.
Gabe was someone neither of us had picked. Gabe is out. That leaves 1 person for the both of us. It's the same person. We both have Andy.
Yep.
So we have no choice. We have Andy next week.
Yeah, I'm glad that the thought process that I walked through last week, I mean, I don't like that it came to fruition, but I'm glad that the way that I broke it down went the way that I expected it, at least to. Where I went with Kyle, not liking it, but just because if someone's going to go home, you know, at least I'd lose, you know, only 1 person, and I'm not actually going to be gone from the game. So yeah, we don't even need to pick here.
Yep.
It's all up to Derek. He has 2 people left, and that is Andy and Genevieve. Derek, what are you doing?
Can I clarify a rule here? I know that you guys only have Andy left, and I know that I have Andy and Genevieve. If I pick Genevieve and Genevieve goes home, but you guys had to pick Andy, we all lose in the same week. Is that an automatic restart, or I get voted out, so then you guys would then restart and I would be gone? So since
Ryan and I would survive the week, it would reset, but only for Ryan and I. It would not reset for you because your person went home, so you'd be out.
Which makes my answer clear. I am not going to put myself in the position to not to get to reset. I have to pick Andy and give myself a chance to get a default win by having someone left. So I'm going with Andy, but I got to do it. I got to go for the 3-peat here, guys.
Yeah, that's the right move. That's the right move. So basically, listeners, the way that this is going to work out is if it is anyone except Andy or Genevieve next week, Derek is going to be the winner of the Survivor pool between the 3 of us this season. However, if Genevieve goes home, all 3 of us are going to reset with everyone left on the board because Derek will no longer have anyone left, and neither will Ryan or I. So full reset.
Yep. That's where we're at.
And if Andy goes home, we all reset too.
Yep.
We do have our first loss of the season, though. One of our listeners, Brandon, has run out of players. He survived the night with Sam, I believe.
Yeah, he picked Sam this week, which was a good choice. However, the only remaining player that he had was Gabe, which means that he is completely out.
Valiant effort, Brandon. Great job. Thank you for playing. We really appreciate it. Maybe next season.
Maybe next season. Also, did want to give a good shout out to Claire for participating as well. She was also eliminated this week just by the fact of not being able to get her pick submitted. She was so close. But, that's part of the game.
That is part of the game. Thank you for playing. We appreciate it. Play again with us next season. It's fun. We love this.
Yeah, and it's not too hard to track for us on our side. So go ahead, submit them next season. We'll give you a nice reminder in the premiere.
Last I'm going to talk about, Derek. You've lost your winner pick once again. Gabe goes out of the game here. He was your winner pick, but he is no more. You get to pick somebody new. Final 8. Who is your new winner pick?
I'm going against something that I said very early in the season, episode 1, actually. I'm going to go with Rachel, my number 3 on my dank down, because I think there's no way Kyle makes it to the end. I think there's no way Genevieve makes it to the end. With those two out, Rachel is in a good enough position and been built up by a threat by people who will be on the jury, like Genevieve, and eventually probably Sam and Sierra being there, and Andy maybe ending up there. There's a lot of people who would vote for Rachel at the end by familiarity or just respect, I think. So I'm landing on Rachel.
Yeah, Josh and I both still have Teeny. We'll see how that goes for us. But okay, Derek goes to Team Rachel. All right. And that's the episode. We're down to the final 8. It's exciting. Who knows which way it's going to go next? Social media.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. It was nice and fun tonight. You can follow us at Castaway Pod on all of those. There's some nice live posting, live tweeting, live skeeting that's going on during the episode. We're rolling with it.
No, we're not.
Follow us on any of those. If you're interested in some of our videos, you can follow us on TikTok and YouTube, which is just Castaway Consultants. Our website is thecastawayconsultants.com. And also go ahead and interact with us on Spotify. It's a great place to post your own link downs along with, we didn't really mention it before, but send us like some DMs of your link downs on any of those platforms and we'll compile them all together, tabulate, run our very scientific algorithm to get the listener link down average going and posted for next week's episode.
I also post my blog on there, so you can check that out if you want.
On the website.
Yeah, on the website. All right, well, this has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.